No one can look so far. No one can pretend the future. Still no one step from us. No one can bend the stars.
I don't know about you guys, but I used to love nature documentaries when I was a kid. I used to love the one about wolves especially. Have you ever wondered what causes the beta wolf to one day risk his life and challenge the alpha wolf for his position as leader of the pack? Most of us initially would try to project our thoughts onto the wolf. When I was a kid, I used to imagine myself being the wolf and try to rationalize myself, rationalize his actions, try to think what I would do in that situation. But that's mostly subjective and thus subject to change. But what really drives the beta wolf's behavior in this fight? Physicalists would say it's the chemicals testosterone and adrenaline. For those of you who don't know, physicalism is the belief that our thoughts, feelings, perceptions are solely the result of chemical reactions in the brain. There is no consciousness or soul, and every action you had or every thought you had, it can be reduced to something physical going on in your brain. If this were to be true, and we'll assume it is for the purpose of this video, then it is these hormones that cause the wolf to take up on this revolutionary behavior. Because after all, what is a revolution? By definition, a revolution is simply the overthrow of a government and replacing it with a new system. That's what the wolf is doing by taking on the alpha wolf and replacing him. So just like in the wolf, these chemicals are present in humans, and it's the same chemicals that have drove every revolution you've ever heard of. Whether their motives were right or wrong, it is the chemicals testosterone and adrenaline that made it possible. It is these chemicals that caused men to take up arms over a tea tax or to storm the beaches of Normandy on D-Day. Let's do a little thought experiment. Let's say you're the head of a government. Let's say for a second that you are in charge of a certain group of people. Since a revolution by definition means the overthrow of your government and replacing it for a new one, wouldn't you do anything to stop such an uprising? Like any person, any system is trying to stay alive. Your government would probably want to keep a tight wrap on any revolutionary behavior. Not just you, so would your workers, the people who work for your government. Obviously they wouldn't want a revolution, as that would mean they would lose their job. Back in ancient Rome, nobody would try to control this revolution through chemicals. Since back then, they wouldn't even know such chemicals existed that could control your behavior and could cause you to act a certain way. But today, with our current levels of understanding, I would imagine such a thought might cross your mind. I mean, it crossed mine. Using chemicals to control the population and maybe prevent revolutions or make sure you stay on power forever. But I mean, isn't it obvious? You surely must have noticed by now. Something isn't quite right here. Again, you may try to rationalize this, but let's take a look at some videos. Let's take a look at this.
Would save us, but it won't.
I can't live my life straight because you're straight. I can't. I just gotta live my life for me and do it for me because this is my life.
I've done my hair down, I've worn the dresses, I've done things that aren't natural to me to please other people.
I was told to wipe off my makeup and be a boy. What they should have told me was to be myself. If other people aren't...
I mean, you think these dudes could like storm the beaches of Normandy on D-Day? You think this guy would be getting off any of those boats and charging at the Nazis? I don't think so. Come on, give me a break.
Comfortable, that is not your problem. That is their problem.
This is what I mean. You turn the men into women, and this is it. You have a submissive population. Historically, women have been a lot more submissive than men. I mean, doctors cite testosterone as the reason why men are more violent than women and more likely to take risks, and so on and so forth. Have you guys heard of Alex Jones? I mean, I used to think the guy was crazy, and this is one of the reasons why.
Feelings, I'm not even getting into it, quite frankly. I mean, give me a break. You think I am like, oh, shocked by it, so I'm up here bashing it because I don't like gay people? I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Do you understand that? Serious crap. I'm sick of being social engineered. It's not funny.
He looks pretty unstable, right? Well, imagine my surprise when I got to 4th year in engineering and we get to this chapter on emerging contaminants on this water treatment class, and this was the video that I was playing. Again, I'm gonna play all of it for you guys, and I think every second is worth it.
While the bay is besieged by runoff from the big chicken and cattle farms along its rivers, I learned about a whole new kind of pollution as I traveled up the Potomac as it winds its way past Washington up towards the hill country of West Virginia. Up here near the headwaters of the Potomac, I heard about the big new pollution threat, not even known when the Clean Water Act was passed. 6 years ago, marine biologists became alarmed at reports of massive fish kills on the rivers in this region. Every year, smallmouth bass were being decimated by some mysterious problem. Spring and fall, hundreds of fish would be found floating in the water, belly up.
So you see this.
I caught up with Vicki Blazer, a fish pathologist with the U.S. Geological Survey, who was trying to figure out why the fish were dying. What do we got here?
So here we have this large discolored area in the liver,
Yeah.
and then you see all these little white spots. Here's another totally discolored area.
And that's a signal of some bigger problem.
Yes, when we see a really high prevalence in a population, that indicates there's some problem going on in that water.
And when Blazer dug deeper, she found a surprise.
One of the major and most interesting findings was intersex in the male bass. When we look at the male gonads or testes, what we find is immature eggs within the male testes.
So you got sort of feminization of male fish. Is that a big, alarming finding in marine biology, aquatic biology?
Yes, and that has certainly attracted a lot of concern and attention.
Scientific studies have linked abnormal mutations in marine creatures, like intersex, to exposure to chemical compounds that mimic or imitate natural hormones in the body. These chemicals are called endocrine disruptors.
Endocrine disruptors are very, very potent chemicals at infinitesimally small quantification. I mean, you're talking about parts per million or parts per billion. They interrupt the normal way in which the body controls everything from growth and development to thyroid function to reproductive function to estrogen levels, testosterone levels. So they're very, very important, and they are a deep concern because there's so many of them now.
There are thousands of these worrisome chemicals that have gotten into the environment. And one reason is that they're part of everything we do.
The list of things that bring these organic pollutants into our bodies is a long list. And it ranges from home care products, soaps, toothpaste, cleaning agents in the household, to things we put on our lawns, the things that we use all the time. The plastic industry, the rubber industry, lubricants, fuels, the highways.
When you see scientists like Vicki Blazer cutting open fish, finding intersex in the male fish, seeing high levels of fish kills, seeing immune systems disrupted, seeing other damage to the fish, is that a warning to you potentially about human health?
Oh, absolutely. The warning not just from the smallmouth bass in the Potomac, but from amphibians all across the country. You have frogs with 6 legs, hermaphroditic frogs, male frogs with ovaries, female frogs with male genitalia.
Hey, I'm going to say it real slow for you. Hey, frogs! Won't you fight for your life?
So, no, not only was the man right, he didn't go far enough. They're not turning the frogs gay, they're turning them trans. And not only frogs, fish too. They're having all kinds of intersex relationships. But anyways, I'm gonna play a little bit more of the video. It's almost over, and then you can see for yourself.
Genitalia. These are the canaries, the modern canary in the mine, that we haven't been paying enough attention to.
So many new chemicals have emerged lately that scientists and regulators are playing catch-up to industry, trying to spot which chemicals they think pose new dangers in our water.
EPA does not regulate any of these things yet, and in many cases there isn't even the methods to measure them in the amounts that they actually have a biological effect.
So science and the regulators are behind the curve dealing with what industry and society is producing or wants.
Correct. And the head kidney and hind kidney were loaded with
Playing catch-up in regulating these new chemicals may be a problem for more than just these fish.
The endocrine system of fish is very similar to the endocrine system of humans. Fish have thyroid glands, they have the functional equivalent of adrenal glands. They pretty much have all the same hormone systems as humans, which again is why we use them as sort of indicator species.
So if fish are having intersex or lesions, that's kind of spooky.
It is. You know, we can't help but make that jump to ask the question, how are these things influencing people?
To get a handle on that question, I headed downriver. Just above Washington, I found another USGS team sampling water from the Potomac, part of a nationwide survey checking for 300 emerging contaminants in our drinking water. They were looking for well-known pollutants like pesticides and for newly detected contaminants found in pharmaceuticals, body lotions, soaps, and deodorants. In all, they found 85 compounds on their watch list.
Many of them are chemicals we're just now starting to be able to even analyze for in water. But the treatment isn't intended to remove those products.
What makes this a matter of concern is that this is the intake for the Washington Aqueduct, where 1 million people in the D.C. area get their drinking water. Few of us may realize it, but people downstream use wastewater from people upstream. The Potomac, like other rivers, serves as both the place where we dump our wastewater and the place where we get our drinking water. It's one big continuous recycling operation, from the toilet or the shower to the tap.
The river flows down, a community takes water out of the river, puts it back through a wastewater plant a few miles down, out, back, and with proper regulation and proper processes at the wastewater plant and proper processes at the drinking water plant, it works very well. So we sort of continuously recycle this.
The recycling process works well for known contaminants. But what about the new chemicals for which the EPA has not yet set safety standards? How tough is the challenge just to keep up with all that new sources of pollutants?
As new elements come in, synthetics, herbicides, pesticides, pharmaceuticals, as those things enter the water stream in concentrations because of more advanced development, more human activity, more animal activity, more commercial activity, those things as they get into the river make it harder for us to do our job. There's no question about that.
Not just harder, but actually impossible to stop all the new contaminants, according to the USGS findings, because the old filters weren't designed to catch the new threats.
We sampled the finished water at the Washington Aqueduct, and we found about 2/3 of the compounds we detected were still detected in finished water.
So you're saying that roughly 2/3 of these emerging contaminants that you found in the river water at the intakes for the Washington Aqueduct came all the way through the filtering system and were in the drinking water, the tap water in the district.
And that's what we saw at all the studies that were done.
Denver's findings mirrored what USGS has found all across the country. Everywhere, they saw lots of new contaminants in America's drinking water, even if at low doses.
So, did you hear that? So that means 2/3 of the same chemicals, the endocrine disruptors that are turning the frogs gay, as Alex Young put it, are still in your water by the time they get to your tap. 2/3 of those chemicals are still present in your drinking water, all around the country, and not just in the U.S. It's the same in Canada, Western Europe, everywhere in the developed world. Even in developing countries right now, they're having the same problems. When I was in fourth year of engineering again, one of the professors spoke on his thesis, and he said he got his PhD by looking at this plasticizer company that was in Puerto Rico. And he told us that in his PhD, he was looking at how the plasticizers, like the chemicals used to make plastics, were ending up in the drinking water over there. And the people who lived in this town, the people who drank this water, the girls were having much earlier puberty. Yeah, they were getting their periods at around 7 years old, something crazy like that. And men were having delayed puberty, getting like their voice wouldn't deepen until like their 20s, or they wouldn't get a beard and all kinds of sort. He only touched on it for a little bit. I wasn't paying as much attention back then, but he did spoke about how these plasticizers and these chemicals were causing women there to hit puberty way earlier due to the high estrogenic properties. Because the reason is these hydrocarbons, they mimic estrogen, and thus these women are like on roids from the beginning, and then they would develop breast early. They would get their periods around 7 years old, and so on and so forth. According to this one study that I looked up, even though the one I was shown at school said a different thing, but this one here says that the testosterone concentration have dropped about 1.2% per year. That's since 1987, and the study ended in 2004, meaning that if the trend continues, it's probably even worse now, since more than 10 years have gone by. So that's an extra 10% or more, because it's 1.2 per year. But I've heard other studies that have said that this problem goes even farther back, and it's been dropping since the 40s, since that's when we started using most of these estrogen mimickers. So what are these estrogen mimickers? Chemical estrogens. They're also called xenoestrogens, and they're environmental hormone disruptors. They pretty much affect your body's hormones. And these are actually worse than organic estrogen getting into your body, because at least organic estrogen, your body has built-in feedback loops, and they recognize the chemical structure, and thus they tell the body to produce more testosterone to counteract this effect. But the problem with these xenoestrogen is that they act like estrogen, but at the same time, their chemical structure is different enough that sometimes it doesn't get picked up by this feedback loop. Now, you'll hear many people out there claiming that they can get you up to like get your testosterone up through natural ways. If you work out, eat organic, if you do all of this. I'm here to tell you that that's impossible. That's baloney. They're selling you a load of shit. And I'm going to tell you why. Because there's over 70,000 registered chemicals that have an hormonal effect on you. And most of them have estrogenic properties to them. They're not really helping you with your testosterone, They're not increasing it. But anyways, I'm just going to go over some of them so you avoid the big ones. But just have in mind that they're present in our soil, water, air, food supply, personal care, household products. They're pretty much everywhere. You can't run from them. Something else needs to be done about this. First off, avoid this. Yeah, you want to avoid non-organic food, dairy, eggs, and all that. As obviously, they're pumped with a lot of estrogen, and if you eat that, you are what you eat. So you're going to turn into an estrogen-filled cow if you keep eating those non-organic cows. Also, you want to avoid plastics, BPA. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but the biphenyls in the plastics they're estrogen mimickers too. And so like the water in plastic bottles, the bottles sit there under the sun for hours and they're cooking, and some of that plastic is leaching into your water, and then you're drinking all this synthetic estrogen. You also want to avoid heating up plastics in your microwave. Maybe use glass, ceramics, steel. That's pretty much it. Avoid preservatives. Avoid non-organic coffee and tea, and on vegetables that are non-organic, as these are sprayed with an absolute crazy amount of pesticides, and these are one of the reasons the frogs are being turned transsexual and whatnot. They're pretty bad. You want to avoid that too. But again, like, you can't run from it, because cream, cosmetics, everything you can think of, skin lotions. We're talking about deodorizer, perfumes, air fresheners, artificial scents. Most scents are benzene rings. For you guys that know chemistry, you know benzene rings usually is what gives it odor. So a lot of these perfumes and artificial scents that you find are just benzene rings with an OH attached or something like that, which is very, very similar to estrogen, and thus your body acts the same. So I guess your dad was kind of right when he was telling you that to avoid just putting on all this makeup and deodorant and perfume to attract the ladies, because that's actually turning you to a lady yourself. I guess he didn't know that, but he was kind of right. Also, the birth control pill, it contains high concentrations of synthetic estrogen, and pretty much when the women go to the washroom, that synthetic estrogen is still left over in their stool and in their urine and whatnot. So pretty much all the women in the West are on this, and they're just dumping all of these synthetic estrogen into our water, like in insane amount of quantities. So basically, you want to avoid these chemicals. You want to use organic food. You don't want to use your natural pest control in your home and garden. Make your own shampoo. Make your own deodorant. By the way, I want to get to this. Let me see if I have this safe somewhere. Oh man, did I lose that? This is not good. Oh, here you go. This is an ad for an underarm testosterone treatment, and it looks pretty funny, right? It looks like a guy putting on deodorant in the morning. I don't know if you guys were paying attention in the video I played earlier, but one of the chemicals, one of the sources of these chemicals, the old lady biologist talked about it. She said that one of the sources is deodorants. In deodorants, there are estrogen mimickers, and every morning, us men, we go to the washroom and put Old Spice right under our arm, and little do we know that we're just pumping estrogen right into our endocrine system. So avoid that. You want to make your own deodorant like I did, and just use it with natural ingredients that are not full of pesticides and whatnot, and other biphenyl rings that mimic estrogen. So, but even if you avoid all of this, you're not going to be able to go back to the levels of your grandpa. You're not going to have the testosterone your grandpa had. You're not going to be able to do that because it's literally everywhere. I mean, and finally in 2012, the Endocrine Society decided to admit that this is a problem, because they were just trying to turn a blind eye into it and said, oh, it's aging. It's because the men are not acting the same way as they did before. Well, the reason they're not acting the same way and they're not as active and acting like men is because they don't have testosterone. It's the attack. It's not the other way around, that they're acting a different way and thus producing less testosterone. It's actually the testosterone. As you can see here, as the effect of testosterone has on men. Let me see where I put that again. There we go. See, it gives you low energy, depression, fat gain, reduced bone density. Who would want to work out like that? Decrease muscle and strength, become more fat. You can see this is one of the reasons we have a rising of obesity epidemic. And look, I'm telling you, testosterone is like the wonder drug when it comes to men. It affects almost everything that men do. It's what makes men men. Healthy men should have around 15 to 30 times the testosterone of a woman, but that's quite not the case. Men are lucky to have 3 times the testosterone of a woman right now. They usually have like 300 to 400 nanograms per deciliter, and a woman is around 100 grams per deciliter. So when we should be a lot higher up. As you can see here, also if you get your testosterone check at the doctor, he'll probably show you something like this, and then if you're anywhere between these two numbers or these two numbers, he'll tell you you're normal, you're doing quite fine. But that's a little bit disingenuous, because that's also in this normal range is including 80-year-old men with diabetes and 60-year-old men and 50-year-old men. So if you're in your 20s, this range means nothing to you. This has nothing to do with the testosterone you should have. But yet they'll tell you you're normal if you have the testosterone of a 60-year-old man, because it's the same for everybody. So what you want to do is you want to go and find like some study from back in the day, maybe 20, 30 years ago, and see what the testosterone of those men were, and you want to be even better than them. So as you can see here, you want to have an average testosterone either 24.2 nanomoles per liter or 697, and this is from 1996. You might want to even go farther back, since it probably started way back. So you want to have even higher than this. You probably want to be around here. You want to be in the 95th percentile, 33 nanomoles per liter. So you are actually a healthy man. And you know what that feels like, because I'm pretty sure most people don't even know that. And it's not their fault. There's an all-out war being waged on your manhood with 70,000 weapons or more. Who knows? Another thing that I wanted to show you guys over here. Let me see if I can find it. Sorry about that. Should have had this better organized. Here
and
in
21
this guy,
nanograms per
we'll
deciliter.
explain to you the very different types of
So let's,
testosterone there is.
in fact, the testes produce over
You also
90...
need to be aware of the difference between them. You want to check your total testosterone, but you also want to check your free testosterone. That means the bioavailable testosterone, the testosterone that is ready for use at any time whenever you need it. It's also a sex hormone binding testosterone, and there's also the here, I think he breaks it down better over here. Yeah, the albumin bound testosterone and the free testosterone. They're usually the bioavailable, and then there's also the sexually bound testosterone. You want to check all of those and make sure you're doing real good. This is kind of how it should look: total testosterone versus free testosterone, I mean. And also you should be aware that where your age group falls, and be aware that your testosterone will naturally decline over time. And this is just natural in every man. You don't need as much testosterone in your 50s as you did in your 20s.
Condition. Testosterone
So they'll tell you can do it naturally, but again, that's nonsense. You can do all of this and you won't even get close. You won't even get it up 60 or 70 points of your nanograms per deciliter. I mean, this is nonsense. Don't listen to this guy. Yeah, this will help. It won't help that much because, again, there are 70,000 registered chemicals affecting you right now, and they're literally everywhere right now, all over your house. So all this is what you could have done back in the day. Yeah, you could increase your not anymore. Now with the attacks that we have now, and this is just the estrogen mimickers. I'm not getting into the other chemicals that affect your body's ability to produce testosterone, or your body's ability to get rid of estrogen, which there are chemicals that affect that too. But otherwise, I'm gonna lose way too much time talking about this. So I'm going to leave it there.
We know soy products today, especially processed soy, most of it is genetically modified. And consuming soy, again, very high estrogen-based food, and whether it be soy milk, soy protein powder, or just regular soybeans, this is something you want to avoid. Now, soy started being consumed in large amounts years ago because it was so popular in Okinawa, Japan, but they consumed a different type of soy. It wasn't the genetically modified soy that we consume today. It was a type of soy called natto, which is fermented soybean. So it was loaded with probiotics, vitamin K2, didn't have the same estrogen effects. And the reason why these estrogen foods are an issue is because they're called xenoestrogens.
Yeah, basically I told you guys about that. But here, he'll tell you basically the effects that has on your body, which I also spoke on, but he'll go a bit more into.
Increase estrogen in your body, or they act like estrogen, which again increases your risk of breast cancer and cervical cancer in women, and for men, major testosterone issues, impotence, and other health issues. So again, soy, #1 estrogen-rich food you've got to stay away from.
Absolutely stay away from estrogen, pretty bad. The rest of them that he speaks about, I already talked to you guys about, like the water bottles and whatnot. But one thing I forgot to tell you guys about, and this is a big one, is Teflon pans. He talks about it right here. Let me put it again.
100 times of those plastics will leach into the water. When you're drinking those will get into your system, causing these hormonal-based problems. And another thing along with plastic are Teflon pans. In fact, when you heat up Teflon pans, that heat actually increases these what are called PFOAs, which are also estrogen mimickers, by 400 times.
And basically everybody uses Teflon now. And so what you want to do is you want to get a cast iron pan, and it's actually pretty good for you. So it's really, really healthy. Again, doing these things may help, but you won't be able to run away from xenoestrogens. They're literally everywhere, all around us, and I've just staying away from them is a full-time job. So what can we do about it? I sadly don't know. So I'm gonna have to let Howard Beale take it from here.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
You're damn right, Howard Beale. But do I think this is all a coincidence? Do I think they didn't know about this? Do I think they just found out? Do I think they're doing something about it?
Absolutely fucking not.
Now, most of you will say some silly thing like we need to get government to do something about it. And let me tell you this. Government is never the solution. Government is the problem. But I don't have a solution. I'm just too angry to keep quiet any longer. I'm mad watching men throw away thousands of years of evolution as if they were a mistake and spewing absolute nonsense like men and women are equal or that being a man is toxic. I'm sick and tired of watching men be deprived of such an essential chemical such as testosterone. And I'm mad as hell watching governments become more and more tyrannical, constantly increasing taxes without any challenge. I miss the good old days when tax increases and taxation without representation were met with revolutions like 1776. I'm tired of watching patriarchal capitalist societies based on merit and individuality being turned into matriarchal welfare states. I'm tired of watching Europeans being run over by migrants while watching their women get raped and beaten, and yet they do nothing about it. Or better yet, retaliate the next day by giving them flowers while wearing a skirt. Well, but I guess it's not their fault. They lack the basic chemicals that, like the wolves, drives them to get out from their slumber and eat everything in their path. The overflow of estrogen all around them keeps them cowering down in a corner and squealing like a domesticated bitch that has been beaten. We're fighting a war like we've never seen before. And the reason it's such a difficult fight is because there are no warriors left. They've been turned into housewives. I, for one, believe the main reason women are doing better in the free market is not because government intervention. I think it's because they're competing against ever weaker and unmotivated men. Again, I don't know what to do. But I do know one thing.
All I know is that first, you've got to get mad.
You watch those nature documentaries on the cable? Yeah. See the one about lions? Yeah. Look at this lion. He's the king of the jungle. Huge mane out there. He's laying down under a tree. He's so big. He's so hot. He doesn't want to move. Now, the little lion comes, they start messing with him. Biting his tail, biting his ears. He doesn't do anything. The lioness, she starts messing with him, coming over, making trouble. Still, Nothing. Now, the other animals, they notice this. And they start to move in. The jackals, hyenas, they're barking at him, laughing at him. They nip his toes and eat the food that's in his domain. They do this and they get closer and closer and bolder and bolder. Till one day, that lion gets up and tears the shit out of everybody. Runs like the wind, eats everything in his path. Because every once in a while, the lion has to show the jackals who he is.